Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from whatever time you're watching this from. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am so happy that we get to spend this time together before the end of the year because I'm coming to you with a very interesting video here. And we have watched a lot of things playing out in these past couple of days in regards to the Sussex coverage by the media. And I've been just sitting back and watching and taking it all in and gathering some information. So you're going to find this very, very enlightening. So thank you for tuning in once again. And if you're here for the first time, thank you. So let's get into this. So first of all, look at this image. If that doesn't say to you a fairy tale love story and a fairy tale princess, just about the ones we read about in every well-loved tale. And this is just about where the story caps off as we read that they lived happily ever after. It's quite interesting that that is one of the major takeaways concerning their nuptials, especially when you consider all of the drama that was surrounding the actual run-up to the wedding, especially from Meghan's side of the family at that time. But the one thing that was undeniable was the sense of love that the whole world who watched this wedding witnessed. So I wanted to start that off with just this image, and I will get back to this because through this image, I wanted to bring to the forefront the power of a narrative. So we're going to start here as we talk about some of the coverage that we've seen of late, especially surrounding the Sussexes. As we stated before, I want you to keep this image in mind of the fairy tale princess of the modern age, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and of course her soldier prince who, as the story goes, he meets and falls in love with, his bride, and he pursues her and he wins her hand. And that, by the way, that narrative will come into play a lot later. Let's start off with, as I said, the recent coverage concerning the Sussexes. Now, we're going to start off with how it's all gone and why it has come so far and what in the world is happening that all of a sudden it seems the UK's distaste of Meghan, and I'm saying distaste in some sections of their press, is suddenly being exported to the United States of America. Now, we're going to start off with how Prince Harry talked about the fact that when they came back from one of their royal tours, I think it was the one in Australia and I think New Zealand, that suddenly they noticed some different change in attitudes at home. And look at this image here of Meghan, the Queen of Hearts, titled by the Daily Telegraph, as she hugs this adorable child in Dubbo. And we also remember the headline as well, Queen of Hearts. Remember this headline as well. I wonder how that was received, back in the palace. So Meghan and Harry have had their recent documentary, Harry and Meghan, the docuseries with Netflix, and people have talked about the fact that it was truly a love story. Even if they did talk about their challenges, they wanted to leave us with this overall outlook that Prince Harry and Meghan, they found each other, they've overcome quite a bit, and now they've come out on the other side and they're calling out the things that needed to be called out. So suddenly we heard the press talking about how the royal family were in fact ignoring the Sussexes and would not meet with them, would not apologize to them. Commentary saying that the docuseries was, let me use the word, beneath the royal family, that they would not comment on that because, they were too dignified to take part in lowering themselves to the level of having to respond to some of the allegations made therein. And you know what? That's their narrative that they're putting out, that they're just, keep calm and carry on their end of things. But I'm starting to think, as a lot of you are, that in fact, they don't need to respond personally. They don't need to have a sit-down interview, as Charles did back in the day when he was trying to set his narrative straight concerning his then wife, the Princess of Wales, Diana, and how she had her book with Andrew Morton. Her friends spoke out and on, and he had that time when he sat down with a journalist, I think, called Dimbleby, and he actually admitted to the fact that he had an affair, which a lot of, royal watchers at the time said, what was he thinking? Because, of course, it lent a lot of credence to what, at the time, Princess Diana had spoken about. A lot of the press, by the way, in the UK were very much against such claims by Princess Diana against the royal family. And, at the time, Andrew Morton was just being, absolutely pilloried in the press for having had the gumption, having had, the audacity to speak out against the then Prince Charles and the members of the family, and how they had been cold towards Princess Diana, and she had struggled a lot in that palace system. So fast forward to today, now we've known that the royal family have said that they would not comment on the documentary. So, as I said, they don't really need to comment. The royal family, arguably one of the most powerful families in Europe. And I'm going to focus on the sudden uptake of negativity from the US all of a sudden, because, why bother in the UK? Some of the press there have been quite consistent in their constant churning out of article after article after article against the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, from her crossing her feet wrong in the past when she was a working royal, to her writing on bananas. The list there just went on and on, to how she disrespected the Queen, allegedly, to how, they never told the royal members of the family about the whole plan to step back, as it was dubbed, Megxit. The list goes on. So we're not going to focus there. There are segments there in the UK press that will support anything. And as we've heard just a couple of weeks ago, Jeremy Clarkson, in his distasteful and quite vile commentary about Meghan, which basically, what consequence? It just went on. And we're going to focus right now that there's been something strange happening when the Harry and Meghan docuseries came out. I saw some articles coming out that made me go, what is happening here? And suddenly it's like it's in the US, and it has been very intriguing. So as we know, there have been a couple of US outlets that have not been very favorable to the Sussexes. I'm talking about your Fox News. Some of them have not been very kind in their coverage, but it has always been on the peripheral side of things. But all of a sudden, in wake of the Netflix docuseries, I started to notice something that really piqued my interest. And this was from, of all places, Forbes. So that got my attention. And this, I think, was released on December the 14th. I remember taking a screen grab of this and talking about this in one of my previous videos because it really got my attention. The headline was this: Netflix's Harry and Meghan is going disastrously for Harry and Meghan. So, that's the headline, and a lot of people sometimes, it's sad to say, they don't click articles, they just go off a headline and they rejoice and say that. But I pointed out this because, it's good to read all the way down to that, in quotes, fine print. Article goes on, and they even say this, let me quote, update 12 of 14. Well, some positive news for Harry and Meghan. The show is apparently Netflix's biggest documentary debut ever in terms of viewership. The show had 81.55 million viewing hours after its debut on Thursday, Netflix said. More than 28 million households watched at least part of the series, apparently. And keep in mind that this is only part 1. There are 3 more episodes arriving on Thursday, December the 15th, completing the series, end quote. So as I said before, a lot of people like to just not read the full articles. They just go off of titles and they go around with a narrative that, their docuseries actually bombed. So we've seen a lot of people trying to shift the narrative around some of the things that Harry and Meghan spoke about, especially when they talked about how they had the issue of being briefed against. Dan Wooten himself, who famously said that it was, members of the family and those who work for them who were, giving out these briefings against them, tried to walk back his comments, but a lot of people were not having that. So what is happening all of a sudden? That's from Forbes. That's not a tabloid. That is what is called an established outlet. Those are people who fact check. Those are people who are trusted sources of news and information. But why would they give them that headline? Another outlet called Variety. I've mentioned Variety time and time again as a trusted source because they are well known in the entertainment industry in this aspect. They are trusted in terms of news concerning anything in the entertainment industry. So they write this. This surprised me. They said it's well past time for Harry and Meghan 2.0. Once again, not a tabloid, a trusted news source, especially where entertainment news is concerned. So there, we had that from Variety. That caught my interest. And then another article I saw was from Newsweek. Newsweek is an American outlet, and this was their story. And they wrote trending. I don't know if it was trending or not. Wrote and said, Meghan Markle is losing America's sympathy, in quotes. Now, all of a sudden, this kind of narrative on especially Meghan from the UK, very intriguing. Not by a British outlet, it's by an American outlet. And then, of course, the article by Politico, which got a lot of people so upset. And a lot of you, by the way, went and found this information. You said that the owner, the founder and publisher of Politico is called Robert Alberton. And many of you pointed out the fact that Robert Alberton's father, who's called Joe Alberton, has a connection with the royal family. So this is a quote from Washington Post talking about the wedding list for the then Prince Charles and Camilla. And they say this, quote, so far we know of only one local couple who'll be at Westminster Abbey for the nuptials, Joe and Barbie Alberton. A call to the private media mogul was not returned, but the billionaire owner of WJLA-TV and Politico and his wife are longtime friends of both Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles. The Albertons share a love of horse racing. They own a horse farm in Upperville, Virginia, and have donated generously to royal charities. They are so close to the Windsors that they were part of the royal procession at Ascot a couple of years ago. Charles is flying to DC in Alberton's private jet for an official visit the week after the wedding, end quote. Thank you for those of you who pointed out that connection. And of course, from the usual suspect, there was another article, this time by Fox News. Of course, they have not hidden the fact that they don't support the Sussexes, and they write this as their title. These are the 8 most annoying people of the year. Of course, they lead this with putting Prince Harry and Meghan on the, as the picture of this article. And also, Ranker.com, whoever those are, wrote and said, celebrities you're sick of in 2022. And of course, therein, they also had, I think, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in that list. So what's happening? What's happening, guys? What's happening? Now, as I said before, the docuseries was watched by 28 million homes, and that's just the first half of it. And Harry and Meghan got their story out, and we saw people saying that the palace would not respond, would not comment. But it does seem to me, and I will say allegedly, that there is some type of response happening. It's interesting to me that this is not on, an outlet like Twitter or YouTube, but this kind of negative response is coming from, as I said, established outlets like Variety, like Forbes. So what is actually happening? Why would Forbes go out of their way to tell us that Netflix's Harry and Meghan is going disastrously for Harry and Meghan? Why would other outlets try to tell us that people are getting tired of these Sussexes and that they're annoying? Why would they go out of their way to try and craft that type of narrative? That, it's well past time for them, that, they need to be quiet and go away, calling Meghan a narcissist, right? So what is happening with all this narrative that is suddenly in the US press against the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Now, I'm going to say this, and I will use allegedly to cover all bases, that this is some type of pushback on their docuseries, a type of response, basically being pushed through the press. We all know that when you have a certain amount of power, you don't have to, quote, fight back yourself. And finally, your own narrative is back in the media that Meghan is annoying. Harry and Meghan, they need to go away. People have had enough of them. That Meghan, she talking about Meghan and putting her on some kind of personality spectrum. So to me, it does feel like there is some type of pushback that's happening on behalf of the royal family, because it seems to me that a lot of people are basically saying the same thing all of a sudden, that Harry and Meghan are not doing well in the US, that, as you saw in that Newsweek, that they are losing America's sympathy, that they are annoying, and that they don't compare, and that they need to be quiet. And if you need any proof to know that these are basically talking points, look at this screen grab from Sky News Australia, where they start off with, "Have you had your fill of Harry and Meghan yet?" He goes on to say, "People who are feeling rather Harry and Meghan out at the moment, well, brace yourselves." And he goes on to talk about the fact that Prince Harry's autobiography is going to be out in 10 days or so. And look how they put it so prominently right there on the screen. Quote, "Prince Harry's about to play the victim again." Just kind of cast your minds back to the Harry and Meghan docuseries, and they talk about how the royal family responded in the press when they were asked about Prince Harry announcing his engagement to Meghan. How many of you were surprised to hear them all say that they were thrilled, they were thrilled, they were thrilled. They had their talking points. I am going to say this. I think some media outlets in the US, and I'm talking about the established media right now, allegedly have some talking points. Because the narrative is being crafted and it's being given out as one thing in one voice. That Harry and Meghan, that they are not welcomed, now being rejected in the US, and that they need to be quiet and stop talking. And it's all of a sudden. And that makes it more conspicuous because it's all of a sudden and we're all noticing it. So here's what I'm going to say. And I've said this time and time again, Harry and Meghan don't have to be your cup of tea. They don't even have to check all your boxes for you, or you don't even have to agree with everything they do. I don't look at Meghan through some rose-tinted glasses that she can do no wrong. I don't look at Prince Harry and Meghan that way. No, they're human. They make mistakes. But one thing I cannot stand by or abide by is someone being bullied. That irks me. That makes me say, nah, I'm not going to sit by and watch that. And I think a lot of decent people out there say, no thanks. We've seen this kind of thing play out before with what was happening with Princess Diana, how she talked about how the narrative was crafted against her and they tried to isolate her and tried to break her down. And she spoke about that. I know a lot of people want that interview that she had with Bashir, just vaulted away. But it was the truth that she spoke. She spoke a lot of truth. At that time, though he deceived her, she felt she had nothing to lose and she spoke the truth. There were 3 of them in that marriage, and it goes on and on. So once again, let's get back to the narrative being crafted and how a lot of decent people, I think, around the world are going to stand and say, no, we're going to push back against willful ignorance, where people are saying that Harry and Meghan especially, has never faced any type of racism in the UK. That she has not gone through things there in those palace walls. Because just the other day, we all heard the story of Ngozi Fulani, who said she went to the palace and she had mixed feelings, and that just led to a whole load of drama. And she was there for 1 day. So my question is it possible at all that Meghan may have, in her position as a mixed-race woman who perhaps people would not associate with the British royal family, they have traditionally not been very race inclusive. They are the very epitome of the height of empire, and they have enjoyed the trappings of it. And quick reminder, a lot of nations who are celebrating independence from British colonialism they're doing it, they're having their 50th year independence celebration. So we're not talking about the way past, So is it possible at all that Meghan may have had 1 or 2 experiences in that environment that were not so accommodating of the fact that she has African ancestry? Leave alone that, what we saw in the press, in the coverage of her, calling her, almost straight out of Compton. Just look at some of these headlines that I will flash up here, right? that type of hate takes a lot of forms. It doesn't have to be a singular word for everyone to go, aha, yeah, that's that. It's a narrative as well. Someone pointed out the fact that there was this Wikipedia edit by someone concerning Meghan. And how foul to use that as her image. Of course, it was taken down. But once again, speaking to narrative, comparing her to that narrative of the whole, the caricature of Black people and the watermelon, that's a narrative that comes from years ago, and someone still had the gall to use that against her. So do not say that Meghan did not face one or two things there in the UK. Of course, we remember the image of Archie being compared with a chimp. Now, why wouldn't he compare Archie with, say, a pigeon? Why a chimp? Why was it easier to come by? Of course, we know there's been that narrative of racism, comparing him to what? But of course, no. We are told to believe that that was just jesting and to just cast that aside, and there's nothing to that. We've seen that some sections of the UK press have been relentless in their negativity towards the Sussexes. And many people have asked, what changed? What happened that all of a sudden, it turned against them? How did she move from being this fresh face to the royal family who would help them to be more relevant to young people and people across the Commonwealth, to her being hated? I mean, just look at this stark difference in coverage of the Duchess of Sussex when she joined the royal family. And look at how it's descended. And of course, Harry and Meghan pointed it out in their documentary that people in the firm would brief against them, and that some were threatened by the amount of popularity that the couple had when they saw their success on their royal tour. And of course, you hear people pushing back on that, saying that there is no way that anyone there in that family was jealous of Harry and Meghan. But I will use their own words. We're not going to pick words from just anywhere. We're going to use their own words. This is from page 6. Notoriously against the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This is a title by page 6, right? They say this: Palace reportedly considering sending rock star royals Harry and Meghan to Africa. So either they're saying that Prince Harry and Meghan are hugely popular, or, maybe we need to redefine what rock star royals means. A lot of these outlets could agree that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were hugely popular with especially the young people across the Commonwealth and people in the UK. They really gravitated to them. Even the Queen was just so drawn in by Meghan, quickly taking her under her wing, having the famous train ride with her, and inviting her so early on a public engagement. Way sooner than she ever did. I think Kate as well, and a lot of pundits also, they commented on that. They said that, it was so amazing how the Queen liked Meghan. So this is another article by page 6 as well, talking about how Harry and Meghan were in the royal family. They write this as their article's title: Meghan Markle's independence is rubbing royals the wrong way. And they say this: typically when Prince William and Harry embarked on a royal tour, they host drink nights for members of the press who accompany them. In a show of camaraderie, they invited the press for tea in South Africa and a hotel bar night in New York City. But things were different this past October when Harry and Meghan, the new Duke and Duchess of Sussex, toured Australia, Fiji, Tonga, and New Zealand. They basically blanked the media on this tour, which is very short-sighted, in quotes. This is according to Duncan Larcombe, who covered the royal family for London's The Sun for many years. So they talked about the fact that Meghan was changing Harry, and he was no longer jovial, and he was no longer entertaining the press. And they said this: the difference, sources say, is Meghan, whose American independence is rubbing some royal insiders the wrong way. They add that it's been tough for the strong-willed Duchess, who is expecting a baby in April, to go from controlling her own personal and professional life to not being allowed to make her own decisions. As a result, she's allegedly taking her frustrations out on those around her. So they talk to a longtime friend, in quotes, about Meghan, and they talk about the part of the culture clash that comes from her eagerness to make her mark. The friend said this: Meghan is a great girl, the kind you can go and have a drink with. She's always there for her friends and is extremely loyal, end quote. But the friend also talked about the fact that Meghan was, quote, unashamedly ambitious. She has a great work ethic, and I can only imagine how that's gone down inside the palace. And then the article concedes, indeed, Meghan has thrown herself into her work. She is hands-on at the Royal Foundation, the philanthropic organization she leads with her husband, Prince William and Kate. And Meghan recently aligned herself with 3 more pet causes: the National Theatre, the Association of Commonwealth Universities, both of which are patronages she took over from Queen Elizabeth, as well as charities benefiting unemployed women and animal welfare. So they talk about the fact that, quote, the Duchess's hard-driving work ethic has even pushed her sister-in-law, Kate, to work harder since her recent return from maternity leave. The palace insider said, Kate has to keep up with Meghan, in quotes. However, this ambition has ruffled feathers with key members of Meghan's and Harry's staff resigning in the past few months. They are there talking about the fact that Meghan is hardworking, she is ambitious, that's just a part of her own culture as an American, as an actress, getting things done, and how that might have clashed in that environment there in the royal family. And also another paper said this, talking about the popularity of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They say this, quote, the way Prince Harry and Meghan Markle overshadowed senior royal family members was a, quote, problem, an expert claimed. So they talk about the fact that the Sussexes had, quote, star power, and it was problematic for royal family. And they say this, while the couple gained popularity after their wedding and brought a relatability to the family, there reportedly was growing concerns that their fame would eclipse the other family members. So that's back in 2020 in Showbiz Cheat Sheet. A lot of these outlets had spoken about the fact that Prince Harry and Meghan were hugely popular, and something was brewing in that corner, as we've heard experts talk about time and time again, and some of the royal commentators admitting to the fact that yes, there has been briefing against them. Yes, there was petty jealousies from the firm in that briefing, and perhaps, yes, it's possible that maybe Meghan did in fact face some type of racism. We indeed saw that in some segments of the UK press and how they chose to cover Meghan, singling her out for the, quote, Megxit, and totally absolving Prince Harry of everything. She was, according to some sections, some Jezebel who came in and, she's just cast a spell over Prince Harry, according to some. And Prince Harry has spoken time and time again and said, no, he made the decision based on all that was going on. He expounded upon it in the Netflix docuseries on how they had talks and talks with the family concerning what was happening with Meghan, and finally them wanting to step back and whole stages and processes of what they wanted to do. Now we're here in the US, and as I said before, it seems a lot of these talking points are being regurgitated from the UK. Look at this article from Mail Online on their homepage. Look at Prince Philip's close friend, Giles Brandreth, who says this on ITV this morning. He says, quote, sympathy for Harry and Meghan appears to be thinning out, end quote. So he says it earlier in the year, and then now Newsweek is repeating it. The Mail talk about how Harry and Meghan's docuseries has flopped, and Forbes is telling us that their docuseries is a failure for Prince Harry and Meghan, and buried way, way down in the article, they talk about the fact that no, in fact, it's been Netflix's most successful docuseries with the numbers it's drawn in. So what's going on, guys? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? They say that members of the royal family, they're not responding, but someone else surely is. And why is the war suddenly being taken to the US? Now I'll let you know why. I'll tell you why. Look at this article here. This is an article talking about Prince Harry and Meghan's docuseries and expounding on it, and it says this. Quote, Diana's love affair with the US wasn't one-sided either. as is speculated, she had her own plans of relocating to America. Now her youngest son, Prince Harry, has followed in her footsteps, even joking that he's, quote, living the American dream in California, where he relocated with his wife Meghan and their 2 children, Archie and Lilibet. This is the highlight that I want you to pay attention to. Americans look at the royal family as an extension of its celebrity-obsessed culture, and with perhaps some of the lowest stakes possible. For Brits, the stakes aren't as low. And then they go on to talk about how the British taxpayer have paid £86.3 million to the royal family, according to the accounts for the sovereign grant. And public opinion on abolishing the monarchy has swayed in recent years, with at least 41% of young Brits aged 18 to 24 wishing to do away with it. So, we've seen the relentless coverage against Harry and Meghan in the UK. And I speculate that this is to cover all the bases, to make sure that Prince Harry and Meghan, they don't have the amount of sway in the UK that they once had. We all know that Prince Harry was so popular a while ago that, he was just up there with the Queen in popularity. And when the soldier prince married his American sweetheart and, she became this fairy tale princess, they shot up there in the popularity rankings. They were so loved. And then suddenly we saw them being cut down, with Meghan being branded this, that, and the other. All those stories that were coming out about her in the press, Princess Pushy, interviewing members of her estranged family in the media every other week to give out their narrative against her, that how, Prince Harry should not have married her. We remember the famous letter that was penned and all that nonsense that took place from the run up to the wedding all the way after that. Story after story about especially Meghan coming out, the criticism against her, them talking about them using private jets. Of course, this famous issue with her at Wimbledon where someone tried to take a selfie and, just an overzealous security officer steps forward and says that Meghan is there in a private capacity, and suddenly it's all Meghan's fault. Stories and gossip on social media about her bullying Charlotte. Goodness, people talk about some things like they're actually there, and people are being played as they click on all these articles and being played. And I would like to just ask people to take a minute and think. Why do you not like her? And don't say because she's unlikable. Why is she unlikable? Why is that the narrative in the press about her? You've never met her. You don't know what went on in the royal family. You don't know her interactions with the staff there. You don't know what she's gone through. People have just believed things, that there was issues over a tiara because you heard sources that she made Kate cry, that she disrespected the Queen. And we're seeing these stories just coming to light one after the other, that in fact Prince Harry had spoken to his family about stepping back. They did not blindside the Queen. So they did not disrespect your Queen. So that's out. The narrative came out that she made Kate cry because, quote, sources. And you believed that? Some people did not like her because apparently she was rude to her neighbors there in the UK. How do you know this? I think a lot of people are being played as they click on this hate articles, and it's all to cut down this really beautiful love story. And I do believe, is fueled, I say, a lot more by jealousy. I think a lot of times people underestimate how tribalistic people can be. There comes in this American into the British royal family, and they are building up their own brand there. They're trying to position other members there as queen of people's hearts, as this and that, and there comes in this, she's an outsider. She comes in, she's this breath of fresh air. Initially, she marries the most popular prince. She becomes this, this princess in the story, American princess. She is suddenly being dubbed queen of people's hearts. She is, hands-on with Grenfell, hands-on with the cookbook, hands-on with the Royal Foundation. She is, just taking on the world in the tours. People are gravitating towards her in the Commonwealth. People are talking about the fact that they are now seeing relevance in the royal family and suddenly cutting them down. Suddenly, there the stories go that, she needs to know her place, that she is Princess Pushy, that, and on and on. And people don't even ask why they are being made to hate her. And I want to liken this to a Star Wars character. I think some of you watch Star Wars. There's this character that was called Jar Jar Binks, and the narrative about him was that people hated this character, and it was such an overwhelming narrative, and that character was targeted more so towards like kids for merch. But suddenly, with all the overflow of hate in articles and commentary, people, may have thought that yes, they should hate that character too. And the actor who played him got so much, hate that, he has such a story that is so impactful about how it made him, so depressed, and how it impacted his mental health. And it's all because of a narrative that some character should be hated, and it flows over to the person who is playing the character. And I call it that effect, like that Jar Jar effect. It's if people hate a character, then everyone else kind of has to jump on in and hate them too and not know why. So step back. I'm trying to reason with the people in the UK. Yes, we know people can be tribalistic and have their own support of their own, Brit being the most popular, being the most loved couple. But at what cost? I say this, if you love someone, support them. If you don't love a couple, you don't have to hate them to lift up your own couple. Support your couple, uplift their things. Don't sow hate towards them, because it just goes on in that whole cycle of hate. And for me, that just does not make sense. And it does also occur to me right now that this whole push to undermine the Sussexes in the US, it's rooted in, I said, jealousy and competition as well. We remember quite recently, a lot of outlets in the UK were talking about how Prince William and Princess Catherine would be in the US. It was going to be billed as them going up against the Sussexes in some way. And here it is. I'm going to back this up with what they themselves were writing. The headline of an article by She Knows, quote, Kate Middleton and Prince William are reportedly using their Boston trip to, quote, maintain a sense of relevance, end quote. So the article says this: the idea to have this year's awards in Boston was also very calculated due to the city's, quote, historical connection to Britain. So an individual called Chernock said that Americans have never lost their fascination with the royal family, end quote. Boston is, after all, home to the US version of royalty with the Kennedy family. Kate and William are hoping to avoid the controversies of their Caribbean tour in March, so the expectations are that this trip will be a highly curated look at the couple. There is a lot of pressure on them, but King Charles is hoping they deliver the best of the royal family. As Kate and Prince William get ready for their trip to Boston, royal watchers are weighing in on the importance of their presence in the US for the palace. It's not just the Earthshot Prize Awards that they are here for. The couple is trying to prove that the monarchy has a place in modern society. The Prince and Princess of Wales will be the first look at the, quote, more updated and modernized family that they want to represent, end quote. Boston University history professor Annie J. Chernock told the New York Times. She believes that Kate and William will have a, quote, tall task ahead of them to change public perceptions about the royal family. A New York Times article also says this: keeping up with the Windsors. That's their title. And they said this: Kate Middleton and Prince William outshine Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in royal battle for spotlight. And this is a Fox article that they were highlighting as well. So it's interesting. They're being billed as people who are against each other or in some kind of competition. And I wonder if, in fact, the Sussexes feel that way, or are they just getting on with their lives in the US? So Newsweek also talked about the fact that Prince William and Kate were booed. Quote, William and Kate had a rocky start to their US tour after being booed at the Boston Celtics basketball game at TD Garden, but they put it behind them during a walkabout the following day. And before that, in their article, they also highlight the fact that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were in New York as well for the Ripple of Hope Gala Award. And there, Fred Dimbleby put a video of people outside waiting for the Sussexes, and this was watched by 535,000, well over 535,000 viewers. As you can see there, I've highlighted it, and people were outside to see them as well. And also in this article, they also talk about the fact that people were out to see William and Kate, in Boston. You see there, the image is right there. So Newsweek is there billing it as some kind of competition between these two. So this is also an article highlighting some kind of competition that the press is pinning between these two couples. From International The News, they write and say, William and Kate lack, quote, relationship narrative signals that Harry and Meghan use. This is from a body language expert. And they say this, speaking to Women in Home, Judy James weighed in on the ways the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are more open to outing their love on display in comparison with the new Prince and Princess of Wales. Quote, William and Kate also lack the relationship narrative in their body language signals as a couple that Harry and Meghan use, end quote. Quote, Harry and Meghan are illustrating and describing their love story for the fans, making their hand-holding and Meghan's flattering, besotted gazing important, end quote. This is from The Expert. And she also goes on to talk about that Kate and William tend to use subtle touches and glances, and they go on and on. And even TMZ here, they highlighted the fact that William and Kate were booed. TMZ says this, unroyal welcome. When they popped up on the Jumbotron, they write, there was a smattering, maybe more than a smattering of boos. And they say, now we all know that's the way Boston fans roll. And they go on to talk about what happened with Prince William's godmother. And then here is Fox News saying this, quote, Kate Middleton and Prince William outshine Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in royal battle for spotlight. Once again, they're being billed as opposites, and look at how they're represented in this billing. There is Harry and Meghan in each other's arms, contrary to you see William and Kate. So they say this, despite their best efforts, Prince Harry and Meghan are continuously upstaged by Prince William and Princess Kate Middleton, they write. So Kinsey Schofield, a royal expert, spoke about this on this Fox article and said, quote, I think we saw the Prince and Princesses of Wales' response to Harry and Meghan's diversions on full display in Boston. They were confident, they were stoic, and it was business as usual. I think their strategy is that any response at this point is beneath them. They have a very important job to do right now, and that is maintaining the strength and love for the monarchy with the Queen gone, end quote. So you can see there, any response is beneath them. We're getting plenty of response. So they also go on in this article in Fox to put down Harry and Meghan. They say that Harry and Meghan are, quote, a novelty right now. They are royalty adjacent, which is giving them some shine and airtime on Netflix. And they also go on to talk about how, the Prince and Princess of Wales, they will always be monarchy. That does not wear off. And they talk about how celebrity culture, it's a rising and falling situation. So they basically try to say that Harry and Meghan are like a flash in the pan, if I can say that. Once again, in this competition, the Telegraph senior fashion editor Tamara Abraham said of the US visit of Prince William and Princess Kate, quote, opting for suits beside William in suits has ensured that they are positioned as equals. This has been very different from a traditional royal tour. It has so much purpose in Earthshot, and the princess's wardrobe reflects that. This is another highlight. Quote, she's no Diana arm candy. As a couple, they're selling us an image of a professional power couple, while the Sussexes are selling us their love story, end quote. Why did she have to include that? Why? Why, my people, why? Once again, another competition. I wonder if the Sussexes know that they're in a competition right now, or is this just one-sided? So it's interesting to me that suddenly they are applauding. I will put this in here. It's interesting. They're applauding the fact that they are side by side. Well, we've all known that there has been a major criticism against the Duchess of Sussex that she, in fact, did not walk behind her man when they were senior working members. A lot of people were incensed by the fact that Meghan would go into a room and greet people before Prince Harry, and they would want just to get behind him. And here we have people applauding the fact that, this is the quote, they are positioned as equals, side by side. And these are the images going along with this article. I am not making this up. This is the way the article is putting them side by side, side by side. So I think something is changing, because Prince Harry always encouraged Meghan to, be by his side. Even sometimes he would urge her just to walk ahead of him. And now suddenly, this new thing is happening, and it needs to be applauded. And of course, there's someone saying, but, that's apples to oranges. Meghan was walking in front of Harry. What a lot of you do not know is that for those who dubbed her narcissistic, for all the times that she followed that protocol and walked behind Prince Harry, and even the Mail had an article where they just went on and on about how she's following protocol and walking behind, Harry because he is the blood royal, and in precedence she has to walk behind him, even lauding her for following that protocol. It's quite interesting when you compare that to how sometimes if you see Kate, for example, walking out in front of William, and even these days going up and greeting people, there is no criticism of her on it. No one talks about her personality. No one's putting her on any kind of spectrum. Once again, there's just that silence or even, applause for her for doing so. So don't say she's walking in front of him. We've seen Kate doing that a lot recently, walking out in front of William, and he's even encouraging her to greet people before him. So yeah, so it's either that protocol has absolute importance and can never be broken, or it's only when Meghan does it that suddenly it's a problem. As I said before, I find this so fascinating. When Meghan does some things, it's wrong, but when other people do them, pats on the back, rounds of applause, standing ovation, everyone, please. So yeah, I always remember certain body language experts saying that Meghan putting her hand on Prince Harry's lower back was, it was her taking a more aggressive position. But when other members there did it, oh, the look of love. And I'm just being sarcastic. So yeah, and it's interesting. I'll just put a couple of articles here for you to say, quote, this is from 9honey.com and My London. This is the heading of their article. William and Kate realized that they needed to step up their game, in quotes, after Meghan's, quote, breakout star performance at the first royal engagement. And then My London writes this as their headline: Meghan Markle beats William and Kate as she's named the brainiest royal. So it's interesting. It's quite interesting. And also, by the way, as we look back on how they were saying that Kate is wearing suits, it's interesting that when Meghan used to wear suits as a working royal, that people said that, she was not listening to the Queen. She was going against the Queen there. And suddenly when other people do it, absolute silence, absolute crickets and applause. They only want a standing ovation. So yeah, once again, as I say, a lot of people who have clicked on those hate articles in the past and continue to do so are simply being played. They are being played. So as I said before, it's interesting now that this media war narrative is being exported to the US, and this is a continuation of the article about Prince William and Kate in Boston, and they go on to talk about whether the fact that the arena had boos and chants of USA and USA. And they were not sure it was Boston reacting to the recent palace scandal concerning Lady Susan Hussey, or whether it was back to their city's tea-filled history with the monarchy, dumping the tea and all that. And then an age-old debate has been ignited once again. Who cares about the royals, Americans or Brits? The article goes on to say, there's no denying that Americans and Brits share a common history. Apart from speaking the same language, the British royal family represents what could have been if we didn't partake in a bloody war for independence all those years ago. Now Americans look on the royal family with curiosity, intrigue, and occasional reverence, almost like an image of what could have been, they write and say. So it's interesting that I think that all these articles that frame William and Kate as real royals, as if Prince Harry wasn't born a prince and now has married his Duchess. Fascinating to see that whole competition in play for American relevance. I think some people feel in the UK they have it down pat. They have, established their narrative there, and now there is an extension of this kind of high stakes battle with the Sussexes in the US media. And I find it so sad to see the press being weaponized against Meghan. We've seen it on social media. And of course, this tweet here saying, "This America is why we don't like her." So disrespectful. Of course, ignoring the entire context that Meghan was actually poking fun at herself. Of course, I'm not saying that was a perfect moment for her. Even, you can see it on Prince Harry's face. He can just see the articles being churned out the minute she does the whole, elaborate bow. No one said Meghan was perfect, but even just the hate that's out of context makes absolutely no sense. So that's why I want to bring us back to that image of that whole fairy tale princess of the prince who goes after the woman he loves, and they go off happily ever after. And of course, that's where the whole storybook ending comes together in those well-loved tales. Of course, that's where you expect traditionally where the book would end in their happily ever after. But we've seen how the story has been so twisted. So what's happening now in the US? Also, when I think about this whole competition, when I bring us back to that whole first image I showed us of this love, I wonder if there might be some jealousy over the fact that Prince Harry, he just fell so deeply in love with Meghan and he was willing to put it all behind him, that the narrative has shifted from him pursuing her to her being manipulative and conniving and getting her hands on him and her hooks into him and her tentacles all in there and making him, back away from his family, and all the narrative of how he has disrespected the Queen and disrespected, the royal family. When in fact, perhaps, is there some jealousy over the fact that Prince Harry owns everything he has done? He protected Meghan. He went to war for her. Soldier prince, it's the whole fairy tale. And I wonder, might there be some jealousy when people consider, other members of the family that did not have such a... what's the word? They did not have, such a picture-perfect fairy tale kind of coming together, but it had a 10-year process of being, the word being tried for the role or being felt out for the role. And it's more like a role, and it had more the connotation of someone being, being given a trial period. And that doesn't feel like a fairy tale to anyone. And I wonder if sometimes there might be some kind of jealousy because of that. It may not have the whole fairy tale appeal. I've heard a couple of experts, royal experts, in fact, talking about the fact that, some couples there in that royal family, not Harry and Meghan, but the then Cambridges, that their love story does not have that fairy tale aspect or appeal to it. So I wonder about that. And of course, no hate to Kate or to William. I'm just pointing out what other experts have said. And sometimes I wonder if, people just need to lay aside those petty jealousies and, focus on the couple that they love, that if they're going to be, future king and queen, support them in that. They don't have to hate on Meghan or hate on Harry for any reason where they look within themselves and truly know that it is fueled by some type of jealousy. So what's happening now in the US? I think that the Sussexes need to be very strategic, and those who support them against this bullying need to be strategic as well. You can't be out there highlighting the hateful articles, because that's how they get more traction and more clicks from those who support that kind of narrative. And the more money they get, the more they continue to churn out such negativity. So I would implore people who see those, quote, hit pieces, just ignore them. When you ignore them, they go away. And find a way to put out something that is positive and nice about the Duchess of Sussex. It's always wonderful to call something out and to bring attention to it, but don't bring attention to it in a way that now you're actually amplifying the negative articles and linking them and giving the haters something to click on. There has to be a more a wise way to go about it. And of course, always it's great to have people calling out injustice in a way that does not sink to that level, calling it out and highlighting it. And for those who do so, God bless you. Thank you so much for that. And now let's be strategic. If the press war is now being exported to the US, I think it's amazing if we all just stand up and be so strategic about it, call it out, in a way that does not, amplify the negative articles. Let's call it out using wisdom. Let's speak out in a way that is respectful and not descend into the murkiness of mudslinging. I think that's when we will do it. So let's just keep the Sussexes in prayer. Pray for each other and pray for wisdom. And let's stand up against all type of bullying in the press, right? I always say thank God for social media, because when we think back to what happened with Princess Diana, she had to wage that war against her in the press by, those talking heads and sources and the men in gray on her own, using her own, wit. Allies were there for her in terms of Andrew Morton, who got his own when he chose to stand by her, and those who stood by her, they got a lot of negativity for it, but in the end, the truth can never be hidden. So I'm so grateful for those of you who stand up and do so in a right manner. And yeah, this is huge. This is huge. And Meghan, I think across the world, a lot of people have paid attention to what she went through, in how she was portrayed in some segments of the British media, in some of the things that came out against her, some of the blatant racism as well that came out against her and has continued to be exposed. And putting these images of the prominent politician there in the UK and his then, I think it was a girlfriend, fiance, who wrote something about Meghan. People in the police service there who have been exposed for racism against the Duchess. We've seen it on so many levels. And it's just such a loss for the British royal family. If they only knew how to embrace Meghan and bring her into the fold. Her joining there was something that was so significant, so symbolic, that a family that was built around empire had a woman who was there, who was biracial, was included, was loved by the Queen. With Prince Harry were, heads of the Commonwealth, and it was just amazing. And people were so happy to know that they felt included, and it's been so sad to watch that reality check. And as I say, it's not a blanket statement. We know that there are people in the UK, even in the press, who have spoken out against some of the horrible things we've seen. And for those, we say, we applaud you. You are amazing. You move our hearts. Thank you. And now we just need people to wake up. Stop being played by the press. Stop being played for clicks. Stop being played, And let's now stand on the ground of watching over people, over the mental health of the Sussexes, over their kids as well, who have also been targeted from time to time. So it only calls for people to stand up and say, enough is enough. They won't be played anymore. And people aren't buying into that narrative that the Sussexes, they are just people who have grievances that are out of the blue. Something went wrong, and the truth will always, always come out. So I want to leave us on this hopeful note that the narrative of the love that this man, Prince Harry, has for Meghan, it wins at the end of the day. And they do, hopefully, as we pray to God, have their happy ending. And the jealousy over the fact that they just have this amazing love story, I think that just has to go away. Happily ever after. So this is a long one, and I'm glad that you've listened up to this point. I want to know your thoughts on these stories and headlines in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. A special thank you to those who support this channel. To my Patreon, PayPal, and membership supporters, I would like to say thank you. And God bless you. And I want to say that I love you all so very dearly. A special thank you to Angel Watt, who supports this channel. Angel, God bless you so much for your giving. A special thank you to you, Marcel Kendrick. Thank you for your love and support for me in this year. And thank you to Georgia Walker. God bless you. And Sylvia Ward. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Once again, thank you to all who support this channel financially. I love you all. Leave your comments below. And I hope you've all had a wonderful holiday, and I'm wishing you all a happy new year. Thank you once again, and I love you, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a blessed one.